Welcome to The Deep Dive. Today we're diving into something super practical, stuff you can use right away to feel better about speaking English. Those key conversation phrases.
Yeah, the essentials.
We've been digging through some really helpful material, especially from a source called Beyond the Mic. They laid out a whole bunch of phrases, designed to make those real-world conversations flow a bit easier.
Smoother, yeah. Less stumbling.
Exactly. So our mission here is to pull out the phrases that are immediately useful, the ones you can actually start using tomorrow. You want to look at how they work, why they work, and maybe when is the best time to use them so you feel, more prepared for any English chat.
And what really jumped out at me from the sources was this concept of building a conversational toolkit.
A toolkit, I like that.
Yeah, it's not about having memorized lines, right? It's about having these strategic little phrases ready to go. They can smooth over awkward bits, bridge gaps, and really fundamentally help you connect with people. It's like a secret weapon, almost.
Totally. Like having the right wrench when you need it, Okay, let's get into it. Let's start with the absolute basics, those phrases that just seem to work pretty much anywhere.
The foundation.
Right. The material we looked at really emphasized these core phrases, the ones that get you started and show you're tracking the conversation.
These are like the oil in the engine, They just make everything run smoother from the get-go. Getting these right sets a good vibe.
Like the classic, nice to meet you. The sources pointed out, yeah, it's polite, perfect for when you first meet someone.
Standard, but essential.
And one source even said you can use it when you first meet and maybe, again, politely when you're saying goodbye after that first chat.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, it signals warmth, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Right away. Makes the other person feel acknowledged.
Then there are the casual starters. So instead of maybe a slightly stiff, how are you? You're right. The source is really like, hi, how's it going? Or even just, how's it going?
Yeah, much more relaxed.
They said it's more casual, sounds more natural, and just, everyday talk. And friendly. Good for kicking off a chat with friends or maybe coworkers.
That little shift from asking about their condition to just asking how things are, it makes it feel less like an interview, more like, a chat.
Okay, so you've started. How do you show you're actually listening, that you're engaged? The sources mention phrases like, I see what you mean.
Ah, yeah. That's a good one.
It's not just saying, I understand. It's more like an active listening signal. You use it to show you're processing what they said, maybe getting your head around a plan they're laying out or a tricky idea. It's just a natural way to say, got it.
And what's great about I see what you mean is it kind of validates their explanation.
Yeah.
It tells them, yeah, keep going. I'm with you. It makes it feel more collaborative.
Right. Like you're building the understanding together.
Exactly.
And what if someone tells you something totally new? That's interesting. Came up as just a solid positive reaction.
Simple, but effective. It kind of invites them to say more, doesn't it? Shows you're curious, even if you don't have a smart comment right away.
Another good one for showing you get it or you agree is that makes sense. You use this when things click or you follow their logic. Shows you're on the same wavelength.
It's a quick way to say, yep, your point landed.
Okay, moving on to actually agreeing and, building that connection. The material offered a few ways to do this well. That's a good point.
Right.
Highlighted. Just perfect for agreeing.
Yeah, simple agreement. Or you can dial it up a bit, like, you're totally right. One source really stressed how good that feels to hear. Makes people feel like you've actually listened and respect their view.
Yeah, that validation. Or the very clear, friendly, I totally agree with you.
And these aren't just about saying me too. They actively kind of strengthen the connection, showing you value what they said.
One phrase the sources seem to really like for that instant connection buzz was, I was just thinking the same thing.
Oh, that's a great one.
Yeah. There's just something about finding out you had the same thought at the same time. It clicks.
It creates that immediate feeling of oh, we're alike.
Yeah.
A sense of being in sync. Really powerful for rapport, even over something small.
Okay, so we've kicked things off, shown we're listening. But, conversations aren't always smooth sailing. Sometimes things aren't clear. You might miss something or need a bit more detail, or maybe just need a second to think.
Right. This is where people sometimes clam up.
Yeah, but the sources were clear. Asking for clarification or buying time is actually a good thing. It's a sign of strength, not weakness.
Absolutely. Shows you're invested in understanding properly.
So if you just didn't hear clearly or missed a word or two, the sources gave a few polite options. Could you say that again? Or maybe a bit softer. Sorry, could you say that again? Or just the versatile, can you repeat that, please? They stressed? These are polite. They work anywhere. And they're super handy. Using them keeps things moving without awkward guessing.
Keeps the flow going.
And one source specifically said, hey, don't be shy about using these. Asking shows you're actually trying to follow.
Yeah, think of it less like admitting you missed something and more like showing you value what they said enough to want to catch it properly. It's engagement.
What if you heard the words okay, but the meaning isn't landing? Can you explain that? That's a phrase I recommended. Polite, direct, asks them to break it down.
Yeah, that's crucial for like complex ideas or jargon you don't know. It empowers you to get clear without just nodding along.
And sometimes you just need a beat, right? To process before you answer. The source is offered, let me think about that. It's a nice, graceful way to pause.
It's like a polite pause button. Shows you're taking their point seriously, thinking it over, instead of just hesitating awkwardly.
And what if you genuinely don't know the answer, but you still want to contribute something? The source has suggested, I'm not sure, but...
The honest approach.
Right. It keeps you in the game. You can offer a guess or maybe some related info without pretending you know it all.
Honesty builds trust, right? Yeah. This lets you be upfront about not knowing, but still keeps the conversation moving.
Okay, so we know how to start, listen, handle the bumps. Now, how do we make sure it's not just the me show? How do we actually open up the conversation, bring others in, and build that deeper connection?
Yeah, conversation's a two-way street, isn't it? Or it should be. Asking about them shows you're actually interested. Keeps the energy flowing back and forth.
The material literally called How About You? A conversation lifesaver.
Huh. It really is, though.
After you answer something about yourself, just flipping it back with, how about you? Key move.
So simple, but so important. It's expected, really. Shows you're not just waiting for your turn to talk.
For meeting new folks, or in small talk, what do you do? Was put forward as just the standard, polite way to ask about their job.
Yep, standard small talk question. And where are you from? That was another one they highlighted, specifically for building connection. Often leads to interesting chats about background or travel.
And after you've shared your own idea or opinion, how do you pull the other person in? What do you think? That's the recommended go-to.
Makes you sound confident, but also curious.
Yeah, one source specifically mentioned using it right after you state your view. Like, here's what I reckon. What do you think?
It's an active invitation. Makes them feel like their opinion matters. And in more formal spots, like meetings, the materials suggested, I'd love to hear your thoughts on, as a slightly more polished way to do the same thing.
And if you really want to encourage someone to keep talking, especially if they just said something surprising, the source is loved. No way, tell me more.
Oh yeah, that shows real enthusiasm. It's a clear signal. I'm hooked, give me the details. Really encourages them to elaborate.
Okay, moving beyond just general chat, the material also gave us some phrases for specific situations like work stuff, or even just those oops moments where you need a quick save.
Yeah, having these ready adds another layer of preparedness, doesn't it?
For professional settings, there were some good ones. Just to double check. That came up for clarifying things professionally. Sounds like you're being thorough, not like you weren't listening.
Right. Allows you to confirm things, instructions, deadlines, without implying you missed it the first time. Very useful.
And if you're in a meeting and you don't quite agree with someone's idea, but you want to be diplomatic, that's an interesting approach. That was flagged as a key phrase for sort of polite disagreement.
Subtle. It acknowledges their input. It is an approach, but leaves the door open for other ideas without shooting theirs down directly. Keeps things professional.
And for organizing things, like setting up calls or meetings, when would be a good time to? Simple, direct, professional way to schedule.
Clear and polite. Gets the job done.
Now, for those little emergency saves the sources talked about, for awkward moments, these were quite clever. Like, if you completely blank on a word, just admit it. Wait, how do you say word in English? Apparently, that's super honest and works really well.
Oh, yeah. People are usually happy to help, and it just breaks any tension instantly. Way better than struggling.
And if you try out a new phrase, maybe it sounds a bit clunky or you feel awkward, I'm still getting used to this phrase. Fantastic way to just smooth it over.
Totally disarming. Shows a bit of vulnerability, invites understanding, turns a potentially awkward moment into like a shared learning thing.
And the final recovery move they mentioned, almost like hitting reset. A little pause, maybe a smile, and then you know what I mean.
Oh, Yeah, the universal connector. It's a casual way to check if the meaning got across, even if the words weren't perfect. Relies on that shared understanding.
So we've gathered quite the collection here of phrases for starting, for navigating, for expanding the chat, handling work stuff, even recovering from a slip-up. But as the source is all really hammered home, just knowing these isn't quite enough, is it?
Not at all. That's just step one. These are tools, right? And like any tool, you only get good with it through practice, making it part of how you actually speak.
Practice makes perfect was definitely a running theme. They suggested things like, try using just one new phrase a day, or consciously try to weave them into your regular chats.
Getting them out loud.
Yes, speaking them aloud, making them feel natural coming out of your mouth in your voice, that's key.
Moving from just recognizing them to actually using them without thinking too hard.
Yep.
That's the goal.
Which means using them for real. The sources really push trying them out in, low pressure situations like ordering coffee or chatting briefly with a shop assistant. That step into the real world is where it sticks.
Definitely. We even saw that structured idea, the 3-day fluency boost. Remember that? Day 1, practice alone, maybe looking in a mirror.
Right.
Day 2, actually use a phrase in a simple interaction, like at a shop.
Right.
And day 3, push it further. Try to teach someone else a phrase you've learned.
Oh, teaching it really cements it, doesn't it? Forces you to get it right. And that pro tip about recording yourself, that's smart.
Yeah, hearing yourself back is invaluable. You catch things, hear what sounds natural, track your progress. Builds confidence.
So the big takeaway from this deep dive seems pretty clear. Having these kinds of essential phrases handy gives you a real confidence boost. They're like your starter pack, your GPS for conversations, and your emergency repair kit, all rolled into one.
Absolutely. And if we think about the bigger picture, it leads to an interesting thought for you, the listener, to consider. How does simply knowing you have these specific phrases tucked away in your mental toolkit actually change how you feel about speaking English? Does having that safety net maybe reduce some of the anxiety, make you a bit more willing to jump into conversations? And maybe take it a step further. What might happen if you intentionally picked just one new phrase from our chat today? Maybe one that feels a bit challenging and made a point of using it this week. How could that single conscious action potentially open up a conversation, a connection, maybe even an opportunity you wouldn't have had otherwise? Just something to reflect on how that deliberate practice turns these tools from ideas into real communication power.